Welcome back to another video. Today I have my top 50 favorite anime movies, which was a really tough one to make, and I made it even tougher on myself because I gave myself two handicaps, one of which being no Studio Ghibli films, and I did this for a reason. I really like them, but I think we've all seen them, we all know which ones they are, so I've decided to leave them out in order to help more people that way, because I think more people are going to want to come in and see new movies to watch than to hear about the ones they might already know about. So Ghibli is the one that we all know about, Studio Ghibli movies, and two, I've decided to make this list fully out of anime movies that you do not need to watch an original anime series to understand. So this is something which I think anybody can come into this video and check out some brand new anime movies, and I hope you guys find something to enjoy. Time of Eve is an interesting take on human-android relations as it is told from the perspective of a human boy who one day discovers that these androids privately meet in this secret bar, and they display these feelings, acting just like normal humans would, also shining a light on android discrimination as well. I wish a story like this were expanded upon in a full-length series, but for a movie, I think it works very well. Asura follows a young orphan with a dark past during feudal Japanese wartime, which, as you can imagine, is an incredibly cruel environment that still manages to tell a touching tale. I think what amazed me the most about this film is that it's animated by Studio Toei within the past few years and doesn't look terrible despite the fact that it's all CG. They must outsource this or something because there's no way that their CG looks better than their regular animation. A Girl Who Leapt Through Time is the story of a girl who leapt through time. They really didn't leave a whole lot to the imagination with that title, did they? Some people would use time travel to kill Hitler, but she just uses it to enjoy eating the same cup of pudding every single day. The movie begins somewhat with a lighthearted feel with lots of comedy, but gradually transitions over to something a lot more heavy in the end. Pet Shop of Horrors is an episodic miniseries where a mysterious pet store offers rare creatures perfect for every customer, with a special catch that if they break the rules of the contract, terrible things will happen to them. Believe me, this is no ordinary story of getting a new cat that won't stop crapping all over your house. It's actually pretty creepy. Escaflowne, A Girl in Gaia is basically a retelling of the original plot of the anime series, but through a different character's perspective. It is by no means better or equal to the original, but on its own, I think it still works well to create a beautifully animated fantasy adventure experience. And I know this is technically labeled as mecha by some, but I find this to be one of the few anime within that particular subgenre to have appeal to those who are skeptical about robots, and this movie has become somewhat of a staple for lovers of classic fantasy movies. Speaking of recap movies, which are neither equal nor better to their original counterparts, next we have the Berserk Golden Age trilogy, and I think by now we're all familiar with the brilliant action-packed dark fantasy series known as Berserk, so I'll keep this brief. If you haven't seen or read Berserk, the originals, then I personally wouldn't recommend starting off with these movies, but I do know many who have and came away with a great experience because I think the movies work very well on their own, but considering I have read these parts in the manga and seen the original anime, I would just recommend starting off with those. Personal preference, you can decide for yourself. Next we have Fist of the North Star, the movie, which is thankfully the last recap/reimagining movie on this list. While it does take liberties with the original story, it delivers in terms of violence and blood in areas that the TV series was limited in. Plus, Kenshiro cuts a skyscraper in half with his head is reason enough, plus Kenshiro's beard raises him to such high levels of manliness that it makes Chuck Norris look like a Japanese pop idol of either gender. Puppet Princess is a refreshing mix of action and comedy set in feudal Japan as young puppet master controls her wooden killing machines in hope of avenging her father's death. It's also worth noting that this has a bit of a cult following, considering that the movie is also created by the same person who made Ushio Totoro, which is also considered to be a classic. Personally, I felt, why am I watching something that's called Princess? But hey, I thought this was really great, so definitely check it out. Nitabo is a historical anime based on a true story of a homeless blind child who plays the shamisen in order to pay for food. This is a touching coming-of-age story that is one hell of a hidden gem that is not to be missed. I know I showed this to several of my friends and everyone was just blown away by this great story. Rurouni Kenshin, the movie, is essentially a non-canon crash course introduction into the series for those of you who are curious about watching the full-length anime or maybe reading the manga but don't want to invest several hours of your time into something that you might not actually enjoy. I think this works well as a standalone movie from what I remember, and it does enough to introduce you to the characters and the plot while also tying it into Kenshin's backstory without spoiling anything major from the show. Metropolis is one classic movie inspired by another, set within a utopian society where humans and robots live together, but of course not as equals, and naturally, as you would expect with any movie with this sort of futuristic environment, there's a deep dark secret hidden beneath the surface, and a big bonus for this movie is that it contains robots, and the script is written by Katsuhiro Otomo, which is usually a big plus. The Dagger of Kamui is another hidden gem, mostly due to its presentation as it is set within various historical places on a grand journey around the world. Additionally, it offers some really beautiful and trippy fights considering the time it was created, and I will say that this has got to be my favorite treasure hunting anime, and it is something that I would say is for anybody out there who loves the classics. I think everybody out there has a soft spot in their heart for the Dragon Ball Z movie Fusion Reborn. It's an overall fun experience with zombies and young Trunks fighting against Hitler. I also enjoy the change in art style for this with its thick black outlines for everything, and I know I said in the beginning nothing that you need to see the original anime series for, but DBZ movies are an exception considering that fans, most of them didn't watch the original story for Dragon Ball anyways. Dragon Ball Path to Power is a slight reimagining of certain parts within the first half of the anime series, and it is by no means a replacement, but it does work well as a standalone. Personally, I feel like episode 1 of the anime is good enough to hook most for a few hundred episodes, but I know some who prefer to watch movies, and I recommend this. I also enjoyed the fact that Mamoru Hosoda worked as key animator for this film. Patlabor the Movie, not to be confused with Catlabor the Movie, which is an educational film, is probably the most realistic take on mechs, as they're mostly used as tools with the exception of a particular flaw which causes them to go rogue and become unstoppable, and I think this, along with Gundam War in the Pocket, is a must-see for any skeptic of mecha who just doesn't have the taste for the extreme and unrealistic things seen within most mecha anime. Mind Game is just that, a literal mind game. It starts off with a romantic comedy vibe, but viewers are in for a twist practically every 10 seconds. It is a wild movie. There's just no explaining it. That's why I haven't reviewed this one yet. What do I say about this? It is crazy. Definitely check it out. The original Vampire Hunter D is honestly just a movie that I recommend for its aesthetics. If you love vampires who aren't effeminate sissies, then this movie is definitely for you, and especially if you're one who loves dark and gritty art style of the 80s animation and anything dark fantasy, then this movie is definitely something that I would recommend for you. Akira is another beautiful classic which I think everyone needs to see simply because of its animation, especially if you're watching this with remaster in HD. It is just amazing, jaw-dropping visuals here, and while I never recommend an entire series solely for its animation, I think movies are a fine exception to that rule because anime is art, and there are times when it should just be appreciated as that from time to time. Plus, regarding the vastly superior manga, I can never see the story of Akira, the movie, as being the same again, but I would still recommend watching it. Spriggan is what I would consider to be the 90s spiritual successor to the movie Akira, produced by Katsuhiro Otomo himself with a star cast of creators. Spriggan offers a truly beautiful presentation with outstanding fights that must be seen by any action junkie. Giovanni's Island is an incredibly touching tale of two brothers during Russian occupation of a small Japanese island slightly after the events of World War II. This is an incredibly, severely underlooked anime film. Definitely check this one out. Dragon Ball Z TV special Bardock, Father of Goku, takes a much more serious look into the history of Goku from the perspective of his father, prior to the events of Frieza destroying their home planet. Dragon Ball Z TV special History of Trunks, and believe me, this is the last Dragon Ball entry on this list, and it's here simply because this is literally my favorite thing about the series since King Piccolo was beaten in the original Dragon Ball, and this is something which explores the timeline of Trunks that he left in order to stop the androids and also save his father. Catsup is just another one of these mindfuck anime movies. Sure, it looks really cute at first, but after about 5 minutes of watching, you're gonna ask yourself that classic question of what the hell am I watching? Katsuhiro Otomo back at it again with a steampunk action adventure called Steam Boy, which follows a young creator and his attempts to keep a powerful machine safe from the hands of an evil army. 5 centimeters per second is that staple romance anime movie that I think everyone probably expected to be on this list, and it is something which is centered around love at a distance. Definitely check this one out. Samurai X Trust and Betrayal is more of a dark and serious take on the events of Kenshin's past as an assassin, and I know this technically breaks the rule I set for myself in the beginning of this list, but it's something that got me into the Kenshin series when I knew nothing else about it, despite the fact that I was kinda spoiled to parts of his history. Even if you're not interested in the anime series, I think it's still worth a watch considering that it stands well on its own as a pretty good movie. Still no competition for that manga though. Garden of Words is another staple romance from the creators of 5 centimeters a second, following a young man who falls in love with a woman at his park. This is easily one of the most beautiful anime movies that I've ever seen. I remember having to rewind and just pause it to make sure that the backgrounds weren't actually pictures a couple of times. The Boy and the Beast is a coming-of-age tale of a homeless boy who wanders into a fantasy world with talking animals, and I love the dynamic between the boy and his teacher. Great development for both of them, beautiful animation, and also a lot of fun fights as well. Sword of the Stranger follows a mysterious samurai who comes along a young boy hunted by Chinese assassins, and if you're a fan of action and amazing sword fights, then this is a must-watch. Paprika is set in a world where humans are working on a way to connect their dreams together and explore the depths of one mind, and this machine falls into the hands of someone who gradually links together the dreams of everyone around, making for one hell of a crazy ride. Arashi no Yoroni is the story of 2 friends who just so happen to be a goat and a wolf. As you would expect, their families don't approve of the friendship, and there's a bit of drama involved. This was a surprisingly good movie, which I recommend to anyone of all ages. Memories is a series of 3 short stories directed mostly by Katsuhiro Otomo. My favorite of the 3 was Magnetic Rose, thanks to Satoshi Kon, and I also thought that Stink Bomb was hilarious as well. Basically a guy who is just full of gas, so much to the extent that like he's ruining the world and the army's getting after him. Pretty crazy. Definitely check out Memories. Tekkon Kincrete is a movie rich with symbolism and philosophy, following 2 young boys who are anything but ordinary as they fend off violent Yakuza thugs and other threats to their city. Descriptions of this movie do it no justice, trust me, because this focuses on both introspective and physical confrontation. You're gonna need to see this one for yourself, and probably twice. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind slightly predates the creation of Studio Ghibli, so to me it's fair game on this list, and it is one of my favorite fantasy adventure movies because it does a great job with its world building. Not as good as the manga does, by the way, but this is the list of movies, and it also creates a mystery around its lore as well, which keeps things interesting. Of course, I think it's a beautiful anime and something that I think everybody needs to check out. Wings of Hanamis is one of those underappreciated anime which is likely to blow everyone away. It is set in somewhat of a fantasy world as an astronaut is working towards being the first man in space. Considering that it's wartime, it's a really difficult project for something like this to get funded in the first place because everyone wants to focus on war, but in addition to that, this features some great character introspection as well, and Hanamis is easily one of the most beautiful anime movies to date, despite the fact that this came out in the 80s, and this is a must-watch for anyone, especially people who doubt the beauty of old anime. Angel's Egg is an experimental anime which will leave you scratching your head and rewatching until you've lost your mind. Honestly, the biggest mystery to me was how something this beautiful came from Studio Dean. Shots fired. Honestly though, I really enjoyed watching this movie and paying attention to every little detail. I watched this like so many times with my friends, and I always see something new every single time, and everybody I watch it with, they're confused too, but it's still a great experience, and they enjoyed watching it. Legend of the Overfiend is a hentai. That's right, people, I'm not afraid to talk about hentai. Welcome to my channel. Check out my guilty pleasure playlist, which I'm still working on. Overfiend is a highly enjoyable movie that is so cheesy thanks to the English dub, which is really the main reason why I love just these crazy movies like this, and I really like the darker tone of the show with all the demons and the blood and the gore. I thought it was animated well for what it is, and it is a total trash guilty pleasure experience that I recommend to anyone who likes to watch weird anime or cheesy horror B-movies. Oji-san no Lamp is a historical short movie following a young country boy who ventures out to the big city and starts selling lamps back to his home village. Despite the movie's short runtime, it manages to practically span our protagonist's entire lifespan without ever feeling rushed, despite the fact that this isn't even movie length. This is really short, and this was such a great find. I recommend it to everyone. I shared this with my friends. I have a review, and everyone I know really did love this. Transformers the movie, because screw it, it's on my anime list, and also I saw this movie 500 times growing up, but you know how I am with nostalgia. It's not good enough reason for me to add something to a list or say that something is really good. The reason why I'm adding this here is simply because the 30th anniversary release of this beautiful remaster shows so much more detail than was ever shown in any of the older versions of this. And does this break my rule in the beginning? I don't think so, because I think anyone can watch this movie and just have a fun experience with it. I mean, it is a cartoon show meant to sell kids' toys, so I think it's something that anybody can watch without having to have seen the original story. Wolf Children is another amazingly heartwarming film from the creators of Boy and the Beast, following a woman who falls in love with a half-man, half-wolf, and raises two half-wolf children out in the country. I thought this did a great job of articulating their family life as well as struggling with being a parent, and also just what it's like to grow up, along with the fact that they added the natural struggles you might expect when you can accidentally turn into a wolf. I recommend this movie for everyone, especially your mom. I know mine really liked it. Tokyo Godfathers is another movie by the brilliant mind of the late Satoshi Kon, following three homeless people who find a baby out in the garbage and try to return her to her parents. During their adventure, they run into all kinds of trouble, and I really love the interaction between the three characters, as it feels almost like they're a family, in addition to learning about their individual struggles and what led them to become homeless in the first place. It's also a great holiday movie that's set during Christmas but isn't really about Christmas. I highly recommend this, or really anything by Satoshi Kon. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust is a total white-knuckle action flick, again for people who aren't the biggest fans of feminine vampire sissies, and you don't need to watch the original to understand this movie, so it's a great first experience for anybody out there, and the art and animation is superb, especially in HD. The fights were just so much fun. Cowboy Bebop is a movie that I would recommend for anyone who's a fan of the series or is curious about the series. Yes, it is set after the characters have all been introduced in the anime series, but the movie does a great enough job on its own characterizing them and setting you up for the plot. On top of that, I really enjoyed the movie's fights. Very realistic. Jinro is a psychological war drama shown through the perspective of a soldier suffering from PTSD. This movie is always what comes to mind when I think of what mature anime movies are. Sadly, not enough people talk about this, but I think this one is a must-watch. Satoshi Kon strikes gold again with Millennium Actress, a movie which follows a movie buff on his journey to interview his favorite actress as she retells the story of her life. This movie is really good because of its incredible cinematography as we transition from current time, memories of the actors, and also movies that she's played in. Ghost in the Shell is another movie which constantly comes to mind when I think about mature anime movies. Not only is this a beautifully animated sci-fi action, but it also features some interesting internal struggles for our characters as they question their own humanity due to the amount of cybernetic implants they have while trying to uncover a big mystery at the same time. I'm sure plenty are scratching their heads at why Redline is number 4, because it's a really simple movie, and that's exactly why. For an action racing sci-fi flick, I think they did an excellent job in terms of creating an exciting experience, which was really all a movie like this ever needed to be. On top of that, this is one of the most beautiful anime movies ever created. Ninja Scroll is the movie which I think revolutionized anime action flicks, as it's filled with iconic fantasy battles as Jubei fights against the assassins from the Emperor of the Dark. Another really fun movie that is a must-see for any action or classic anime junkie, plus if you watch the film remastered in HD, it's total eye candy. Lupin III: Castle of Cagliostro was written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, who put everything into creating this highly detailed comedy adventure of Lupin, who aims to save his damsel in distress. I know it's part of a Lupin franchise, but this is a movie which stands so well on its own, doing a great job of introducing you to all of its characters. Perfect Blue is another anime masterpiece created by Satoshi Kon. It's a psychological horror following the struggles of an ex-pop idol transitioning over to acting as she's being stalked by a dangerously obsessed fan. Kon's wonderful cinematography can also be found and appreciated in this movie as well. So what are some of your favorite anime movies? Let me know about that, and also, if you found any movies on this list which you've never heard of and decided to check out, come back and let me know what you think of them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe for more news and lists and that sort of thing, and if you happen to know somebody that is trying to get further into anime and trying to expand their horizons, movies are a great place to do it, so be sure to share this video with them so that we can get everybody out there seeing all sorts of anime out there. Really appreciate all that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.